This episode may contain content of a graphic nature, including descriptions of physical and sexual violence against adults, children, and animals. Listener discretion is advised. Hi everyone, I'm Talia.
And I'm Tanya.
And together we are Crimes and Consequences, a true crime podcast. Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Crimes and Consequences. I am Talia, and this is my lovely co-host,
Tanya.
Together, we are two attorneys that love true crime, and
we like to talk about it.
We do. We talk about it all the time, and we're going to share some stories with you guys today. This one is known as the zombie killer. Or the Canal Murders.
Okay.
And it starts out in 1992. But before I get into it, I want to ask everybody to hit the subscribe or like button. Anything. Tell your friends.
Yes.
Watch us. Listen to us. Whatever you're doing.
And thank you to True Crime Daily for hosting us.
Yes, thank you. So this story starts out in 1982 in Phoenix, Arizona, and this is a really crazy story, and it's really gruesome, so you know. There are, in 1992, two young women with really bright futures, and their lives were cut short. These murders, as I said, would be known as the Phoenix Canal Murders or the Zombie Killer Murders or the Zombie Hunter Murders because of the murderer's nickname. At the time of the murders, after they occurred, there were 600 possible people that the police thought could
600
be
suspects?
Yes.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
And it would take 2 decades to solve these cases.
Wow.
But if you think about it, how many killers out there just kill twice in 2 decades?
Yeah. Oh, in 2 decades? Yeah.
There's some more out there, and we'll get to that. It would be almost 30 years before the killer was brought to justice, and that was through DNA.
Oh,
Genealogy.
DNA is going to get you.
So let me start out with the first victim. Her name was Angela Brousseau, and she disappeared on November 8th of 1992. She was only 22 years old, and she worked as a tech worker. I don't know exactly what she did. She'd recently moved to Phoenix. Every evening, Angela would go out for a bike ride, and she had like a circuit that she went around, and it was about an hour, and her boyfriend Joe would go with her most of the time. But on this particular evening, Joe didn't go. You know why?
Why?
Because the next day was her birthday, and he was baking her a birthday cake.
Oh, man. Oh.
So she went by herself. She left her apartment. Oh, I got to put my glasses on. It was about 7 o'clock. Her boyfriend Joe, he's making this birthday cake. And again, he expects her home in about an hour. But then she doesn't come back. So he goes out on his bike and he's looking for her. He did 3 different searches for her, couldn't find her. So eventually he called the police. The next morning, her headless torso
Oh, no.
was found in a field next to a trail where she often rode her bike. This is really gruesome. Her torso had been cut open, actually this way, and she was almost severed. She'd been stabbed in the back, dismembered.
Oh.
Her head was cut off, and she'd been sexually assaulted after death.
Oh, no. This is bad. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
It's kind of comes with the territory of our podcast, though.
It does. But, oh.
After her death, They searched for her head, but they couldn't find it. And her bike was also missing too. But 11 days later, her head was found stuck in the canal on a grate.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was about 2 miles away from where her body was found.
Hmm.
Are you ready for this?
Oh, no. Okay.
Investigators believe that her head had been kept in a refrigerator
What?
or a freezer, possibly before, based on the decomposition of it.
Jeez. Really?
Like, what the fuck?
I know. Like,
Like, what
what
the
does
fuck?
it matter with
What the-
people?
What the hell?
Yeah. What the hell? What the?
And investigators believe that she was pushed off her bike and brought into the trail where that all took place.
So they think she was killed there? Like on the trail?
On the trail.
Wow.
Yeah.
Killed and dismembered on the trail?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's pretty. It's pretty bold. Like,
Yes.
you know, I mean, I understand you're out in the wilderness or whatever. I mean, but seriously, I mean,
It's not really that. I mean,
No,
this is
it's
in
not.
Phoenix.
Yeah.
So it's not that
wow,
much
that's
wilderness.
crazy. Yeah, that's crazy.
But her case went cold.
Damn.
But then on September 21st of 1993, Melanie Burness went missing. She was only 17 years old, and she was a junior in high school. The night she went missing, her mom, her name was Marlene, she wasn't home, so Melanie decided to go for a bike ride,
Wow. Okay.
and she never made it back. Marlene gets home. She calls the police eventually because she notices that, okay, Melanie's bike's gone. Melanie's not back. First, she calls friends. She called her friend Rachel as her best friend. And Rachel's like, oh, she's probably at other friends' houses and just didn't tell you. But Marlene calls all over and no one has any idea where Melanie is. So then Marlene calls the police. But the next morning, a woman named Charlotte Pottle was riding her bike with her toddler, like on the back.
Oh, yeah.
And she thought she saw, like, it was a puddle by the canal. And she didn't think anything bad. And she puddles through it, the puddle, and realizes it's blood.
Oh, no.
It's blood. And then she noticed drag marks on the ground that went into the canal.
Oh.
And she called the police.
Smart woman. I'm not going to go investigate. I am calling the police. Yeah.
When police arrived on the scene, they found, this is so strange, they found Melanie's body floating in the canal, dressed in this teal bodysuit. It looks like a one piece with a zipper.
Was it like a full body suit, like a scuba?
No,
suit?
it was like a swimsuit
Okay, like a swimsuit. Okay.
with a zipper.
Okay.
And she was not
that
wearing.
wasn't what she was wearing?
Nope. That is. She didn't go for a bike ride. And
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, you're right.
Right.
You're right. I didn't think
mean,
about that. Yeah.
So they believe the killer had to have undressed her, redressed her with this bodysuit.
Well, that's fucking weird too.
Yeah. It's like this is like one piece. She'd been fatally stabbed in the back, dragged over the asphalt, cut across the neck, and sexually assaulted. Letters had been carved in her chest.
What?
Yeah.
Did they spell anything?
No, I couldn't find out what the letters were.
Okay.
But there was also a cross carved in her.
What the hell? Man, people
What
are
the-
fucked up. I'm just sorry. God, this story is a mess
And
already.
I'm thinking that he had to have done that all around that area.
Yeah.
Because she's dragged.
Right. And there's a puddle of blood.
And put on a one piece.
He brought it with him? I mean, that's so weird.
It's the strangest thing.
Yeah.
It really,
I agree. This is just bizarre.
I told you, this is
yeah.
we talked earlier. This is a strange story. That night on the news, it was reported that a woman's body was found in the canal, and they mentioned the bodysuit. Rachel, Melanie's friend, was like, that can't be Melanie because she didn't wear that bodysuit. But the next day, it was determined, yes, this is Melanie. And they were able to pull DNA from both Angela and Melanie because they'd been sexually assaulted. And they were able to realize that the DNA matched one suspect. So they knew that both women had been murdered by the same man. And they actually thought for a little bit they might be looking for a surgeon.
Oh, really?
Based on the cuts of the body.
Oh, wow.
But the cases went cold. In 1994, there was a tip that was actually called in regarding someone who said that they had a friend named Brian Patrick Miller who had a similar teal body suit at one point in his belongings. But the police didn't follow up on this tip. I don't know why a man would have that.
Yeah, I don't either, but okay.
So years go by. Decades go by.
Yeah.
It's 19 years that go by. And eventually a cold case unit gets formed. And they're looking into the canal murders again. And they started with that list of 600 people.
Damn.
And they tried to go through the backgrounds, all of that. But I mean, there's 600
so
people.
many people.
And it was going too slow. And they didn't get anywhere. But then they caught a break in 2014. There was this forensic genealogist named Colleen Fitzpatrick, and she went to a conference that law enforcement were having, talking about this technique for, genetic DNA and how you could help with cases. Her company was called Identifiers International, and they had developed this software that could mine public genealogy databases and look for matches for DNA. The police sent her the DNA evidence, and her company came up with a surname.
Oh.
Miller.
Uh-oh.
And there was this officer on the cold case. His name was Officer Schwartzoff. He found 6 people on the list that had the last name Miller out of 600.
Oh, they cut it down, right?
Yeah. Brian Patrick Miller popped up as one of those 6. And let me just tell you, he's a fucking weirdo.
Yeah.
He should have popped up a long time ago on their list. He was 42 years old, and he had this record. He had a record from being a juvenile from before the murders. When he was around in his teens, like 14 to 16, I'm not really sure how old he was, he stabbed a woman named Celeste Bentley.
Wow.
When they got off the bus at the same stop.
He just stabbed her.
Wow. Celeste had thought she got hit in the back and then realized there was blood. She was at this bus stop, and when she got off, it was right next to her work. So she stumbled into her work and had them call an ambulance. This is her account of what happened. Well, when he had ran by me, I thought he just hit me. But then I reached back to my back and pulled my hand up, and I saw there was blood. Luckily, the police, because she stumbled right into work and they'd called, 911 right away, they were able to get Brian. I don't know what he was doing. He was hanging out, whatever. And while Celeste was in the ambulance, they brought Brian to her, and she said, yeah, this is the guy that attacked me. And he was charged with aggravated assault. He pled guilty, and he was sentenced to the juvenile home until he was 18 years old. While he was in the juvie, his mom found some disturbing things in his room.
Oh, boy.
There was pages that detailed the plan he had, and it was a plan to abduct, rape, dismember, young women. On it, he talked about kidnapping a girl, tying her up in a truck, cutting off her clothes. And his mother was so upset.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, when he gets out of the juvenile home, he's not coming back here. Right? No. She was worried for her safety and basically everybody's safety.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't welcomed at her house. So instead, when he got out, he went to a halfway house and then he ended up living, I don't know, in another house. So you have the cold case team and they're investigating the background on Brian, and they find this note. I mean, ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
Like, because it was in his juvenile file.
Right.
And they're like,
Yeah, this
seems to match.
Yeah, right.
And they notice the similarities, between Angela and Melanie. And they track down Brian Miller, but it wasn't hard to find Brian.
No?
No. Because he was the zombie hunter.
I know.
He was a local celebrity who used a old police car that he kind of spray painted or put blood on that said zombie hunter on the back, and actually had a zombie in the back seat. It was a dummy, not a real zombie.
Right, not a real zombie. In case you were worried.
And he wore this costume all the time. He had this persona, but he had a long trench coat, a helmet, goggles, and a gas mask.
Oh, lovely.
And a fake Gatling gun.
Okay.
It kind of looked like a bazooka to
Okay.
me. He would go to Comic Con,
like
comic
conventions.
events and things like that. And they had pictures of him with police officers. People would get their pictures taken with Brian.
Yeah. They just thought he was like the local kook, I guess, right? Like, okay. That's cool. He's cosplaying,
cosplaying.
Yeah,
yes.
he's cosplaying.
But that was probably his real persona. Like, he wanted to be a zombie hunter.
Yeah. Okay.
Except there's no zombies.
Yeah, except there's. Is there?
I mean,
I'm just
maybe.
kidding.
I mean, Walking Dead had zombies. I don't know. I've seen some people that look like zombies. At the time, when police are investigating his background, they see that he works at Amazon Fulfillment Center, and they decide to trail him because they want to get his DNA to see if
yeah, that's right.
To see if it matches, right?
Yeah.
But they couldn't while they just had a hard time. So Officer Schwarzkopf, he came up with a plan to get Brian's DNA. He noticed that Brian would always take breaks outside. So he approached him and he told Brian that he worked for a security company, and some thieves had been stealing goods from a warehouse across from the Amazon warehouse. And the officer asked him to look at the building while he was outside on his breaks, to keep an eye. And he agreed. So the officer's kind of trying to be his friend.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the officer asks him if on January 2nd, 2015, if he would meet up with him at Chili's to discuss what
Oh, really?
Brian had seen.
Yeah,
And
let's just meet at Chili's. Like, what?
tell me, Brian, what
Yeah.
have you...
So what have you noticed when you take your breaks
Oh, he fought
outside?
for it.
Yeah, he did. That would set off my suspicion. Or like, why do you want to meet me at Chili's? Like,
But, I mean, this is 2015, and the
Right.
first crime I'm telling you about is 1992.
that's true. That's true.
So they're seated away from everyone else, and the staff is told to make sure that nothing gets contaminated. And the cold case unit, of course, is behind the scenes, ready to bag everything Brian
Touches.
touches, and there was no exception. The officer was surprised because he didn't really believe after meeting with Brian that he could possibly have done it.
Hmm.
It's kind of interesting. They did end up getting his DNA from a cup, but Officer Schwarzkopf was convinced that there's no way Brian could have done it. No. He believed he was innocent because Brian had a 15-year-old daughter. He was divorced, and I'll get into that. And he brought his daughter with him, and he was so nice and so sweet to his daughter. And just the way he acted at lunch, the officer's like, no, this cannot be somebody that like eviscerated somebody. But 11 days later, DNA came back, and it was a match.
Wow.
He matched both of the profiles found on Angela and Melanie's bodies from 1992. And he was arrested. And Brian was asked, how did your DNA get there? And he said, I don't see how that's possible.
Yeah, I have no idea.
No idea.
No idea. Okay. Yeah.
He denied.
Somebody planted it, I guess, right?
He denied everything. And he said he didn't do it.
There's no way. It wasn't me.
Police executed a search warrant for Brian's house, and they found out something interesting about Brian. He's a hoarder.
Oh, no.
They couldn't even get, like, basically into his house. It was so stuffed with...
What do you do in that situation when you're the police?
I know, and they have a search warrant.
And they have a search warrant, and they're looking for... God, you have to look through...
Oh, that
I mean, if you're looking like... Let's say,
I've seen hoarders.
A laptop or something, right? Like...
I don't...
I know. I've seen it on TV, like, oh, no. Like, where could what you're looking for possibly be?
Well, they found... like Satan, I don't know if it was books, but it was material in Satanism, cannibalism, necrophilia.
There's books about that?
I don't know if it was books. It was something.
Okay.
Somehow they found
material.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Material. I mean, they never found any bikes or anything, but again, this is from 1992 and this is 2015. Brian was interrogated, and he mentioned he had an ex-wife, and he said that it's the one person on the face of the earth, I probably hate.
Oh.
And the police were like, ding, ding, ding. We need to talk to her. We need to see what's going on.
I can't wait to see what she has to say,
right? So let me tell you a little bit about Amy. Amy married Brian when she was 19. And they were married for a total of 8 years. They moved to Everett, Washington for a bit. Let me just see. She said some very bad things about Brian.
I'm sure she's got some scoop.
Yes. Brian had told her, okay, let's listen to this. Brian told her a story one time about a young girl he'd killed in Phoenix. He said she came to his door, and when he opened it, he grabbed her, pulled her into the house, and then slit her throat, dismembered her, and put her remains in the trash, and then left her remains on the curb, and the garbage came and picked her up. Amy's like,
that's a weird story.
Oh, she didn't do anything.
Right? Like, well... I'm sure you don't think the person that, okay, number one, this is a weird fucking story to tell somebody. But, I mean, I wouldn't, if my husband told me a story like that, I'd be like, what? Like, are you putting me on or?
Okay, well, I would dive in a little deeper. And then,
like, did you really do this?
I wouldn't just be like, oh, okay. I have stories too. No,
I don't know if I'd move on, but no.
I don't know what I would do.
It's so weird.
I'm not judging her.
No.
She didn't report it. She was afraid of him because he was violent.
Yeah, I would be afraid too.
Amy said that Brian never told her who the girl's name was, but they did use this information, and they were able to match up who they believe the girl was, and it's very sad.
Wow.
They believe it was Brandy Myers. She was 13 when she went missing. She'd been going door to door collecting money for a school bookathon.
Oh.
She went missing on May 26, 1992. And at that point, Brian lived one block from her school. She left home in the early evening, never returned. And she was last seen walking in the direction of Brian's house.
Yeah.
Coincidence?
I think not. I don't think so.
According to her sister, Christy Dennis, they only lived 3 blocks away from his house. And they would walk past his house every day.
And she was never found, right?
Nope. She was never found.
Oh, that's so heartbreaking.
I know. I don't think it's just coincidence. I mean,
I don't think it's coincidence either. Even though that's all the evidence you've told me. I mean,
yeah. So please believe that Brian told Amy the truth about Brandy Myers, but her body was never found, and they never had enough evidence to convict him. In 2002, Brian was in trouble again for attacking another woman. Her name was Melissa Ramirez. She was walking down the street at night when Brian pulled over to give her a ride. And she got into the car with him because she recognized him. He had been talking to one of her friends before. When she got in the car, she told him she needed to make a call. So he said, hey, my work is right here. You can use my work phone. So they go inside. She says that while she was on the phone, he left her alone.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just came running with a 12-inch serrated kitchen knife and stabbed her in the back. And I don't know where he worked at the time.
Yeah.
They fought for the weapon, and Melissa managed to escape and called the police. Okay, so she's called the police. The police pick up Brian. He denies at first, like, stabbing her. But then he says, no, it was self-defense. He was at work minding his own business, and Melissa came in and tried to rob him.
Really?
With a knife.
Okay. Sure. She's going to walk into a workplace
and rob him. I don't know. I don't know what, again, where he worked. There was obviously nobody else around. There were no witnesses. He was charged with first-degree assault with a deadly weapon, and he was put in jail from May of 2002 till his trial, which was in December. And he got acquitted. Because the jury didn't believe Melissa.
Wow.
And his ex-wife, Amy, said that he started acting even more strange while he was in jail. She would receive letters from him. He was claiming he was innocent, but then he would talk about all these sexual deviants and all these horrible sexual things he was going to do to her. She told the police that he opened up to her and said, as a child, his mother had been abusive. And she believes that he was trying to, create a sort of defense for the murders he did by starting to blame his mom for making him mentally ill.
Okay.
It took 8 years after Brian was arrested for the murders we're talking about, that he actually ended up being charged. And
wonder why it took so long.
And the trial. The trial ended up starting. Yeah. It began on October 3rd. I don't know why.
I know, because if you get arrested and you wait 8 years for a trial, that doesn't go along with having a speedy trial.
No, I think it was 8 years after he was arrested. Now I think about it, for the and then acquitted for that one assault. My bad. He was charged with first-degree murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, 2 counts of sexual assault in the deaths of Angela Brousseau and Melanie Burness. The trial was October 3rd, 2022, and it lasted 8 months.
Damn.
That's a very long trial.
That's a super long trial.
Imagine being on the jury.
Oh, man, if I was on the jury.
Which I have jury duty tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, I hope you don't get an 8-month trial.
What the hell would I do?
I know. Oh my God. That's horrible. I mean, it's part of the process. We need people to serve as jurors, but
I know, that's a really, really, really long time.
Yeah.
So they opted for a bench trial.
Okay.
They didn't want a jury.
Yeah.
And Judge Suzanne Cohen presided over it. Brian's attorney shocked everybody with his opening argument, admitting that his client was the Canal murderer.
Really?
Yeah, but he was not guilty because he was insane.
Okay. He was insane at the time of the murder.
For decades.
Sure.
Okay, because I have more. There are more unsolved
sure.
cases that I'm going to go over. He suffered physical, emotional, and psychological abuse by his mother, Ellen, as a child. And that led to his violent behavior. His dad had died in a motorcycle accident when he was little, and Brian's mom died in 2010. So, like, she can't defend herself.
Yeah. It's an easy way to blame someone when they're no longer here.
Yeah, he claims that she beat him when he was 5. And he said, quote, she used her security belt because she worked in law enforcement. And I usually got hit with the buckles.
Oh.
They interviewed neighbors and friends, and they did kind of agree that he was like an unwanted guest at the house.
Oh, that's not good. But this is no defense to me.
Yeah, I mean,
viciously murdering someone, dismembering them, and
no.
sexually assaulting them after they're dead.
So a psychologist, her name was Bethany Brand, testified that Brian developed a condition known as dissociative amnesia.
Oh, okay.
And an inability to remember some traumatic events, such as when he murdered 2 people. He can't remember them.
Okay, sure.
He doesn't remember that. He does remember the ones that
lived.
Yes.
Okay.
But he can't. He remembers what he did as a juvenile.
Yeah.
But he can't remember anything about the murders. The prosecutors called his ex-wife, Amy, to the stand, and she testified about their marriage and how he just got really violent during sex. He would tie her up. He would use needles on her without her consent. But she never told anybody or complained because she was afraid of him. And she said about probably 95% of the time they had sex, he was extremely violent with her.
And he got custody of their daughter?
Yeah, I don't know.
Wow. That's crazy.
So there was, that 8-month trial, and there was a verdict. The defense had, asked for leniency. They found him guilty.
I was going to say, if you tell me that they found him not guilty, I'm going to storm out of here now.
No.
Okay.
He was found guilty, and his counsel, who was R.J. Parker, asked for leniency. But the judge was like, fuck that.
Yeah, no.
In June of 2023, he received 2 death sentences for the first-degree murder of Angela Busso and Melanie Bernis.
Oh, good.
He also got 24 years for kidnapping and attempted sexual assaults. And anyway, he's on death row at the Eman Prison Complex in Florence, Arizona. And he says it's not all that bad. It's better than jail. The people on death row are actually less scary than the people in jail. But he doesn't really like the accommodation.
Well, that's unfortunate. I'm so sorry. Your jail cell is not a luxury hotel room.
And I can't end this story without talking about Adrienne Salinas. Okay. Adrienne Salinas is an unsolved murder case. She was a 19-year-old student who went to Gateway College in Tempe, Arizona, and she disappeared on June 15th of 2013. That night, Adrienne and her roommates had this big party. There were like 40 people there, and it's just an apartment. So, I mean, it's a big party. During that party, Adrienne and her boyfriend, whom she'd been dating since childhood, his name was Francisco, they got into a fight, and he eventually left the party. Adrienne went into her room and kind of kept to herself, but then she decided she was texting with Francisco, back and forth because they're fighting. And she says, I'm going to come over to your house. And he's like, me.
Right.
We're fighting. But she gets in her car and she drives. And she's only, a couple blocks away from her apartment when she hit something, and I'm not sure what she hit. It wasn't another car. It was a one-car accident. And it just there's these pictures where you can see her rims are all messed up on the right side, and she gets 2 flat tires.
Ugh.
So she walks back to the apartment, goes through the party, and she's texting Francisco, and eventually she tells him, I'm going to take a cab and come to your house.
Oh, she's determined.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah. She's determined to like bitch him out in person.
And I don't want to imply that she had drinks, but it does seem like she might have, being that it's a party and she crashed a car, but either way, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
She calls a cab and asks the cab driver to meet her a quarter mile away at this convenience store. I don't know exactly why, but she packs a little bag, goes through the party, and walks towards the convenience store. And they have video surveillance of her at 4:52 walking towards the convenience store. In the interim, she's texting Francisco over and over again, but I think he was asleep at the time. He had 11 text messages from 4:15 to 4:15 to 4:53. The cab driver texts her. They say cab driver. I don't think they had Uber back then. Do they? I don't know. It says cab driver. I mean, that's what the research I saw. Says, hey, I'm here. And she's like, I'm almost here. Like, they're texting. And he waits, and she doesn't show up. He calls her phone, the cab driver. It's like 14 minutes later, and her phone is off.
Wow.
And she never shows up.
Oh, that's crazy.
Then, and this was in June, right? June 15th. Her family's looking for her. Her dad, Ricky's looking for her. It's all over the news. I mean, she was a responsible student, and she just disappeared. She didn't even have her purse or keys with her. She took a cab. August 9th, there's this man, and he owns a lot of property in the desert. His name is Dan Kelly. There was this huge flood, like a rainstorm that caused flooding. And then when the flooding ended, he wanted to check out his property. And he's walking through it, and it's acres and acres. And he sees vultures. Lots of vultures swarming this area and on the ground. And he gets there and he sees a decomposed body.
Oh.
And this body is missing its limbs, and the head is removed. And it's later determined through DNA that it's Adrian's body. But they couldn't state the cause of death. They couldn't tell if she was intentionally dismembered.
Yeah.
But this is what's interesting about it. Zombie hunter Brian, his Facebook posts show that he was at a party less than a mile away from Adrian's house.
Really?
That night. And he said that he planned on going on an early morning hike.
Really? Yeah. That seems kind of
coincidental. I don't know. But a lot of people believe that she probably was dismembered and decapitated.
Wow.
And
that's really
it was
sad.
Probably him.
It was probably him. Yeah, he's never admitted to anything, right? Well, I mean, besides the trial where they said that he did kill the 2 women, but he's never admitted to anything else, right?
He never admitted to Brandy. I mean, he only admitted to things he knew he had to admit to.
Right.
So anyway,
so her case remains unsolved, but they think he probably was the killer.
Yeah.
I do too. I'm just going to say it.
They believe that her body was perhaps somewhat buried in this desert area, and then the flooding unburied it and moved it out towards the open.
Oh, sad. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how many women he actually did kill.
I mean, if you think about it, he started when he was like 14, 15, 16.
Plus, you don't go like your first person you're going to dismember and
like you work your way up.
Yeah, you work your way up, I think. I mean,
I don't know. I mean,
I don't know, but I'm assuming that, that's not something that you do.
And he had that list when he was
like a little freak.
When he's
right?
When he's like 16 of all these things he wanted to do. So
he's been thinking about it a long time.
Why wouldn't he have acted on it more? I'm sure there's more out there.
I'm sure there is. He could have went to another state. Who knows, right?
Who knows?
That's very sad. I'm so sorry.
So I want to thank everybody for listening to this.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Jackie, for suggesting it. We appreciate you. We have a Patreon. You guys can check us out on patreon.com/TNT Crimes and get episodes like this as an early release with no ads. Also, once a week, we do private Patreon episodes with no ads. And you can check out our website, crimesandconsequences.com, where we have merchandise available for anybody that likes to have nice t-shirts that say, like, what the fuck, Tanya? Or I hate people.
Yeah, that's my favorite one. I work out in that one.
You, because I worked out with her.
Yes. So.
And thank you, True Crime Daily.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
On your platform.
Yeah.
And if you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe/follow button for True Crime Daily.
Absolutely.
And like us.
Yes.
Don't say bad things.
Yeah. It's inevitable.
We really don't care.
Yeah.
We don't care.
So, but anyway, until our next episode.
Thank you. Don't kill each other.
Bye.
Bye.